People on the left who follow me, listen up. This is going to be a rather hard video to make. And I'm going to try to make this and speak these words to the best of my ability. Hey there, everybody. My name is Javier Lopez here, coming to you live, Javier Blog 208 on YouTube. Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube are where I'm posting my podcast videos in regards to political happenings and things happening in the world. I am a center-left Christian podcaster. And I want to talk to you guys today about James Talarico, the Texas Senate candidate who defeated Jasmine Crockett in the Texas Senate race and who won that primary and is going to go off to face the current Republican Texas senator in November. Now, I want you to bear with me here. This is going to be a hard video to make, a little bit of a hard video to make, because I want to just go back to quoting Charlie Kirk for a second and just throw in a quote from Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk used to say, "I'm a Christian first, then I'm a conservative." Well, I'm going to say the same thing. I am a Christian first, and then I am a left-leaning independent. And when I say that, I want to dig into some truths about this guy that just won the Texas Senate primary. And speaking these truths is going to be a little bit difficult. It's going to be a little bit difficult, but I also want you to bear in mind that there are things that I do agree with him on. But there's also some severe things that I have really heavy disagreement with him on, and I hope you will listen to me. I came across a post, which before I did this video, I wanted to verify. And this came from a right-wing source. Bear in mind, it came from a right-wing source. Texas Democrat James Talarico, who's training to be a minister, is on the hot seat for his political, quote, radical departure from biblical teaching or whatever, to be Christian. But then this is going to go on to list a bunch of things that he says. And before I made this video, I wanted to verify the sources of what he says. And I'm going to go down the list, and then I have a whole bunch of clips to play to you, and then we're going to discuss after every clip. So if you can stick around to the end, I really appreciate it. And honestly, I'm also going to give you where I do agree with him too. So there's places where I agree, but there's also places where I really, really, really fundamentally and strongly disagree. And we need to talk about both. All right. Talarico says illegal immigrant children are more patriotic and hardworking than American children. Well, in a big state, in a big place, I actually do agree with that in a sense. I do agree with that. And there's clips on that. I'm going to play them for you and we're going to discuss them. Talarico claims the Torah provides instructions for performing abortion. He didn't actually say that outright, but he did say something along the lines of that, where he says that, like, in the Old Testament days, there were like instructions for, abortion and procedures and how to obtain abortion, if you will. Talarico insists the trans community needs abortion care. Unfortunately, I did hear him say that. We're going to play the clip later in the video. And unfortunately, I did hear him defend abortion rights within the trans community, which I don't understand, honestly. I don't understand. That seems a little bit off. Talarico has asserted there are 6 biological sexes. He did this based on a scientific study that apparently he found wasn't quite able to verify. Honestly, kind of made a fool of himself. As far as I know everybody wants you to say there are 2 genders, period. As far as I know, and as far as all of science in the world that I've ever known, is I've only seen evidence in my lifetime of 2 genders. I've never, ever, ever, ever seen evidence of a third gender. That's the way I say it. You know how the right may yell at me, demand me to say, there are 2 genders, nothing, no discussion. In my lifetime, I've only seen evidence of 2 genders. That's where I will leave it. If you can provide me evidence of a third gender out there, say a minority third gender out there, please show me the evidence. But as far as I'm concerned, I am convinced by science as of today that there are only two genders. If there's more than that, the burden of proof is on you. Talarico has claimed that God is non-binary. Well, actually, let's talk about that for a second. Let's discuss that for a second. Talarico has claimed that God is non-binary. So, at the end of the day, the Bible does refer to God as Father. Okay? I'm going to play these clips later. The Bible refers to God as Father. So, basically, God is, I don't know, male, if you will. I don't know. I don't know. I genuinely don't. That's a hard one. That's a hard one because, like, it's hard because he has, yes, he has motherly traits. When he comforts you, when he shows you love, when he's there for you, you know, you can see motherly traits in God as well as fatherly traits in God. So, yeah, there's a little bit of truth to that, but the Bible does refer to him as Father. I don't want to get into that so deeply because there was actually another video that I found that actually got into that a little bit deeper by the guy that baptized me, actually. He actually addressed that. And he actually had a little bit of an interesting explanation for that. So I'm going to leave that at that. He said God is both masculine and feminine and everything in between. God is non-binary. Well, God does hold, like I said, masculine and feminine traits, and I genuinely do believe that, even though the Bible does refer to God as Father. Talarico says the Bible supports gay marriage. I'll be quiet on that one. I'm not against that. That is something I actually disagree that, I disagree that, what am I saying? I'm a little tongue-tied here. Talarico says kindness to women implies support for abortion. Kindness to women implies support for abortion. I did hear him say something along those lines, and we're going to play the clip and we're going to discuss it. Talarico says, annunciation is proof God affirms abortion rights. He did say something along those lines. We're going to discuss it. Talarico has focused a project on reclaiming Christianity for the left. I do believe that Christianity should be reclaimed for the left. I strongly believe that, actually. I don't believe it's a conservative religion. And I've made that point clear a lot. Now, I started this video off on a rather intense terms, if you will, saying that we need to talk about this truth about this guy. Well, we will. And like I said, the way I do this is I show grace first. I show grace, I show where I agree and where I disagree, and that's the way I take it. But also, give me one second. So at the end of the day, like I do, I start off, I show grace to the best of my ability. I explain where I agree, but we also need to we're going to get into the clips, and we're going to get into some core fundamental disagreements that I have with him, and we need to talk about it. So I hope you guys are bearing with me. There was a tweet from now let's get into this. There was a tweet from James Talarico on Christianity, as we know that he's training to be a minister, a Christian minister, if you will. James Talarico says, I believe Christianity points to the truth. Okay? So far, we can somewhat agree with that. Jesus Christ is the truth. So if the Christianity points to Jesus Christ, then Jesus Christ is the truth. I also think other religions of love paint to the same truth. So that's a little bit universalist, it sounds like. I've learned more about my tradition by learning about Buddhism and Hinduism and Islam and Judaism. I also see beautiful faith traditions as circling the same truth about the universe, about the cosmos, which is the truth is inherently a mystery. Well, what do you mean by the truth is inherently a mystery? I've seen, these beautiful truths, faith traditions circling the same truth about the universe, about the cosmos, and the truth is inherently a mystery. So I have to agree with Benny Johnson on this, by the way. Benny Johnson made a point on this. And he's like, if you think that the truth is inherently a mystery, you're not pointing to Jesus Christ is the truth. You think it's a mystery. We don't know the truth. Then how can you be a Christian? How can you be a Christian if you don't know what the truth is? If Jesus Christ said, I am the truth. And as someone of the Christian faith, I'm obligated to preach that. If James Talarico is of the Christian faith, he's obligated to preach that Jesus Christ is the truth. We can't get into this universalist nonsense about, oh, we don't know what the truth is, etc., etc., etc. Now, I want to start getting into my clips here that I have here, and I had to verify the things that James Talarico said to see where I agree and where I disagree. And the point he made about immigrants is probably the thing I most strongly agree with him on. But let's dive in and see what he has to say. We're going to go through these one by one.
Sheep's clothing. Yeah.
Do you know any undocumented immigrants?
No, I do not.
When I was a teacher on the west side of San Antonio, I taught a lot of students who were undocumented. And I don't want to stereotype, but those students tended to be the most patriotic, the hardest working students that I had in the classroom. And again, I haven't stated this enough to...
That is very true for a lot of undocumented immigrants. That's very true. A lot of them are some of the most patriotic people that you'll ever meet. And because they love this country enough, they want to work, they'll willingly pay their taxes. They willingly pay their taxes and find a way to do it too. And it is as Christian as it gets to stand up for these people, to stand up for these hardworking, tax-paying, law-abiding people who are here trying to build better lives for themselves and who want to have a pathway to citizenship. Some of these are the most patriotic people you will ever meet. And Talarico is right on that. And I believe every Christian should be standing by their side. That's my faith. Now, I strongly agree with him on this. Let's get into the stuff where we start to disagree.
To say this definitively, but there are interpretations of certain passages from the Torah where some folks will even say that there's some subtle instructions for how to perform an abortion in the ancient world, certain things to drink, things like that. Before we go further...
All right, what is he talking about? All right, so he says the Torah has instructions for performing abortion in the ancient world. First of all, chapter and verse. You need to cite chapter and verse if you want to make your point. But it sounds like just an argument to defend abortion, if you will. And abortion is something that I've come to tell you guys that it's something I morally do not agree with. I do believe that, like I've said in the past, I believe we should be working toward, the right and left should come together and say abortion is not something we want, and we should be working together to make the amount of abortions as low as possible. That's my view. And that includes through a lot of legislation that the left is pushing, like the left wants to promote, like paid family leave and universal child care and things like that. Things that will encourage people to have families, that will encourage people to have kids, that will encourage people to want to keep their kids, funding adoption services, etc. And therefore curbing the number of abortions, because abortion is not something we're supposed to celebrate. Abortion is not something that we're supposed to want. And that's the truth. Continuing on.
I want to acknowledge that our trans community needs abortion care too.
What is he talking about?
Defending trans Texans is something we have to do every day at the state capitol. And you better believe I'll be giving sermons on that too.
All right. I agree with the concept of defending trans Texans. I agree strongly. They're a very persecuted minority community, and we should be standing up for them. I think especially Christians should be standing up for them because they're a very, very demonized and marginalized community. But what is he talking about? Abortion services for trans Texans? Like, how can he talk like this? I don't understand that. Like trans Texans need abortion services too. I mean, and we need to be defending abortion services for trans Texans. How can he talk like this? Like this, I'm sorry you guys don't like the truth, but this is the truth. This is a little bit wacky. This is a little bit wacky. Defending abortion for trans Texans, like, are you okay? Let's talk about it. Let's try to reason here. Let's try to reason here, because I'm a reasonable person. I'm open-minded. I'm a reasonable person. I'm open-minded, liberal, and I'm a reasonable person. So let's reason here. I'm 100% on board with standing up for the trans community, because the trans community is a very demonized minority community, heavily attacked by the right. But why do you have to mix abortion into this? Why do you have to mix abortion into this? Like, why is defending trans community involve mixing abortion into this? That does sound really off. We're going to play the next clip now.
To be aware of is that modern science obviously recognizes that there are many more than two biological sexes. In fact, there are six. Is both.
All right. So, as I said before, he has claimed that there are that modern science has claimed there are 6 biological sexes. I've never seen that study in my life. Like I said, people who want to prove a third or fourth or fifth gender, if you will, the proof I'm open to it if it exists. I've never seen a shred of evidence for it. The burden of proof is on you. So if you're claiming that there's a scientific study that said there are 6 biological sexes, the burden of proof is on you to prove that. And I would like to know personally, which study are you reading that from? Where did that come from? I've never heard of that study in my life. Never heard of it. And it just sounds a little bit off. Unless you can provide proof of that study, it sounds off. Next clip.
Masculine and feminine and everything in between. God is non-binary. So this idea that to be a Christian means you have to be anti-gay.
All right, so as I've discussed in the beginning, about the whole binary debate about God, yes, it's true that God is referred to as a father, but at the same time, at the end of the day, God does have motherly traits. He does, love on you when you're hurting, care for you, be there for you God cares about you personally and does have motherly traits. He has fatherly traits and motherly traits. So even though the Bible does refer to God as a father, this one is actually surprisingly a little bit accurate in a sense, because I want to recommend you guys a video, about God being non-binary by the guy that actually baptized me. Give me 1 second. Yeah, I want you to see this video actually. So basically, James Talarico is somewhat right. The evangelicals, the right wing Christian mafia crowd, if you will be attacking this guy for saying that. But in a sense that God does have, and I learned this, God does have feminine and masculine traits. And technically we all have feminine and masculine traits, whether we're male or female. I mean, I think that, for me, I get emotional. I'm an emotional person. I'm sensitive. I express my feelings a lot, etc., etc. And I guess, if you will, those can be considered feminine traits. And there's a lot of women who are like tough, concealed, etc., and those they have masculine traits. Some guys have more feminine traits, and there are women who have more masculine traits, and that's just what it is. But God, in reality, James Talarico is not wrong about the fact that God is technically, I don't want to say non-binary, he's a father, but he does have non-binary traits. And the video I want to recommend to you is from FOTM1, the guy that baptized me, him right here. This is the video I generally want to recommend to you guys. Holy Spirit is non-binary. Stop fighting about stupid stuff. I'm not going to play the whole thing. Maybe we can play it and discuss it. Maybe I can play this video in a separate broadcast and discuss it. But this is interesting. So it kind of goes back to what Talarico says. in regards to God being non-binary. And, there's some truth to that. There's some truth to that, actually. So this is kind of thing I'll just kind of like rather leave alone. But the whole...
Science obviously recognizes there
let me just get to the next one. Hang on a minute.
and feminine and everything in between. God is non-binary.
So there is some truth to this. There is some truth. Now, next I'm going to do this.
So this idea that to be a Christian means you have to be anti-gay and anti-abortion, there really is no historical, theological, biblical basis for that opinion. So this idea that to be a Christian means you have to be anti-gay and anti-abortion, there really is no historical, theological, biblical basis for that opinion. And if you think about it from a Christian perspective, something interesting that Jesus does throughout his ministry is he is breaking...
Yeah, so just addressing that other point, actually, I agree with him on that too. Actually, kind of 100% actually. First of all, being a Christian doesn't require you to be anti-gay. It just doesn't. It just does. You should not be anti-gay if you're a Christian. You should not be anti-gay. Some Christians may have their beliefs about marriage, but at the end of the day, gay people are sentient human beings. Are sentient human beings that exist in this world, that just grow up, are different, and want to fall in love, want to have normal lives. And we should be standing up for them. And I agree with that. I agree with that. Now, about being anti-abortion, I don't want to judge. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I don't want to be here to be the judge of people's Christianity based on what they believe on abortion. So basically, I personally disagree with abortion. Okay, I personally disagree with abortion. But at the same time, even though I personally don't agree with abortion, I'm not going to take it to the step of judging people's Christianity based on their views on that. You see what I'm saying? I do not want to judge people's Christianity based on their views on it, because sometimes their views come from very, very sensitive areas. And honestly, like sometimes they have like deep stories about why they had to do this, why they had to make this terribly sad decision about doing it. And that's what abortion is, Abortion is a terribly sad decision that some people make that they don't want to make, And that's the truth. That's the truth. And I think in the vast majority of cases, abortion is completely unnecessary. But at the same time, there are cases where, sometimes they feel like they got no other choice. They were raped, product of incest. They were going to die. There are some cases where they feel like this is a sad story. We really didn't want to do this, but at the end of the day, we have no choice. There's somebody I used to know from high school whose mom actually got an abortion, and the whole thing is just a sad story about why. It's a very sad story, and I've heard other stories like that. So at the end of the day, I'm not the one that's here to judge people. I disagree with abortion in almost every single case. But there are very sensitive and sad and heartbreaking stories where people feel like they absolutely have to do this. And I have love for those people. I really do. And not only do I have love for those people, I'll fight for those people. That's probably as pro-choice as you're ever going to get me. But that's just the truth. And at the end of the day, because people have those sensitive and sad stories where they feel like they have to, why should we judge their Christianity based on their view on it? Why should we do that? It's a different world where teenage girls are going to clubs and having sex and getting pregnant and not wanting the baby and deciding, no, that's a different world. But there are a minority of stories that are actually very sad, and where we should show some love and sensitivity to these people and definitely not decline their Christianity based on their views. So again, I'm going to continue on to some more of him.
First century norms about women, talking with women, learning from women, as throughout his ministry, is he is anti-gay and anti-abortion. There really is no historical, theological, biblical basis for that opinion. And if you think about it from a Christian perspective, something interesting that Jesus does throughout his ministry is he is breaking first century norms about women. talking with women, learning from
I
women,
agree with this.
having women lieutenants in his movement. And this was something that was kind of unheard of in the first century. The longest conversation Jesus has with anybody in the whole Bible is with the Samaritan woman at the well. And so this affirmation of women as full and equal people is a huge part of the Jesus movement, especially the early church. And then the last, I think...
Actually, you know, I agree with him on that. I agree with him on that. Now, actually, I'm not going to lie. He's speaking some truth here. He's speaking some truth. Jesus, in the Bible, from my understanding, was about making women, was about including women in the ministry and making them full and equal people. You know, Mary Magdalene, the woman at the well, Mary, the mother of God, Mary, the mother of Christ, you know, and there's in the Bible, especially in Jesus' ministry, is full of women that Jesus spoke to, loved, and pretty much, and honestly, ministered to. They ministered to him. They did minister to him. The woman at the well ministered, I think, if I remember, she ministered to him. That's what happened. And it's just, they ministered to each other. So Jesus was about, a big portion of what Jesus was about, including women in the ministry and equalizing women in the ministry. So actually, this is something I agree with him 100% about. 100% about. So let's continue on.
The story I would go to is the story of Mary. Mary is probably my favorite figure in the Bible, the mother of Jesus. And, you know, she's an oppressed peasant teenage girl living in poverty under an oppressive empire as a Jew. And she has a vision from God that she's going to give birth to a baby who's going to bring the powerful down from their thrones, going to scatter the proud, who's going to send the rich away empty. I mean, this revolutionary song that she sings is called the Magnificat, and it's actually been banned by certain authoritarian regimes because it is so radical. But I say all this in context of abortion because
okay, this is where it is.
Before God comes over Mary and we have the incarnation, God asks for Mary's consent, which is remarkable. I mean, go back and read this in Luke. I mean,
that doesn't justify abortion,
comes
dude.
Down and asks Mary if this is something she wants to do, and she says, "If it is God's will, let it be done."
Though that may be true, in my opinion, and I need to be real. Though that may be true that God did ask Mary's consent, and she says, "If it's God's will, let it be done." In my opinion, not even in my opinion, just in reality, you can't use that to justify abortion. That has nothing to do with abortion. God was not talking about aborting baby Jesus, okay? That had nothing to do with abortion. And you stuck abortion in there to a place where it did not belong. And honestly, I'm going to be real. I'm going to be 100% with you. That's blasphemous. That's blasphemous. Again, going back, it's a very mixed bag with him, okay? I'm going to be real. It's a very mixed bag with him. This guy, he's saying a lot that I agree with. I'm not going to lie. He's saying quite a bit that I agree with. Some things I'm like a little neutral on. Other things I really, really strongly disagree with. But I think the things that I strongly disagree with him on, when it comes to like his talking about abortion so much. Like he mentioned abortion, trans people. He mentioned abortion with Mary. He mentioned abortion in the Torah. I'm seeing that this guy is very, I'm going to be real. He's very pro-abortion. He's very pro-abortion. And he's using Christianity in a lot of ways to justify being pro-abortion. That's a bad, bad, bad red flag. And it's blasphemous too. Because abortion, at the truth of the matter, it's the killing of an unborn child. That's just the truth. That's just the truth. And, you know, I respect a lot of his stances. I really do. I really do. This guy is a minister. He's not really sure if he actually believes that Jesus is the only way. He says that the truth is unknown. He sounds a lot like a universalist, a new age preacher in some ways. And there's just a lot of red flags with him, guys. That's just the truth. That's just, as far as him in the political sense, or whether or not he should go on to be the next senator of Texas. I'll be real. I really want a Democrat to win Texas. I really, really, really want a Democrat to win in Texas. I really do. And honestly, you know, at the end of the day, how I vote is where his values stand. He will stand for the marginalized. Of course, he will stand for the marginalized, and I believe in that. He will stand for the oppressed, for the LGBT, for the black man, for, you know, the undocumented immigrant. He will stand for those people. And because of that, I would like to see him win. But at the same time, this dude has some very blasphemous theology from a religious and Christian standpoint. And that's just the truth. That's just the truth. You can't mix abortion with the story of Mary. You can't do that. You can't, and then you go on and mix abortion with standing up for the vulnerable trans community. Trying to mix abortion here, mix abortion there. You see where I'm going with this? It's red flags, guys. It's red flags. I would like to see him win in Texas. Texas needs a Democratic senator. Texas needs somebody who will fight and stand for the marginalized. But this guy is, I mean, that doesn't take away the fact that religiously and spiritually and faithfully, this guy's loaded with red flags. And his subliminal messaging on, I really, really, really support abortion is very obvious. And like, at the end of the day, you know, abortion in the Torah, abortion in Mary, abortion in the trans community, you know, it's too much. It's too much. You can't do that. You can't do that. I still may yet support him politically. And because I do think that a senator like him who will stand for the marginalized is a lot better than any current Republican senator they have today. And Texas is badly needing a change. Because Texas is really, really, really way too conservative a state. But open your eyes and see these red flags, and I don't really know where to leave it. Religiously, Christianly, this guy is on the wrong path in a lot of ways, spiritually, religiously, and Christian-wise. I think I'll leave it at that. Thank you for watching, and I still, like I said, there's still things I agree with him on, obviously, but thank you for watching, and I think I'll leave it at that. Take care.